We're very fortunate today to have Professor Nasser Hadian, Professor of International Relations at the University of Tehran, here with us today and to do an interview on the Iranian nuclear program and the current negotiations that are happening on the subject. It's very nice to have you here with us today.
Thank you very much, and it's a pleasure and honor to be here and sharing my idea with you.
Wonderful. So many people ask or wonder how much, there's been a change in the Iranian administration, of course, since the summer. President Hassan Rouhani has come to power, and his style, his mode of diplomacy, his policies are quite distinct from his predecessor, former President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad. And I think many people, want to know how much is this a real change? How much power does the president really have in Iran's political system, and particularly in regards to the nuclear file? Because, as many of you know, Iran also has a supreme leader. What is the relationship of the supreme leader and the president in the Iranian political system?
In fact, presidents are an important player within Iranian political system, and those who would argue that all power is basically reside with the supreme leader, though maybe theoretically legally right, but in practice that's not the case. We know that once President Khatami was in power, Iran basically made a deal, made an agreement with the West, with the Western power. But once President Ahmadinejad came to power, that was changed, and now again, since President Rouhani is in power, we see another major shift and change in our policies, not only regarding the nuclear issue, but Iran-US relationship too. Even under President Khatami, we did not have exchange of phone calls or shaking hands with the secretaries of states and the presidents of both countries, but we had it. Now in September and later on in Geneva. So these are indications of the power of the presidents and the way they can influence the decisions in Tehran. Thus, those who would claim there is no difference and all power resides with the supreme leader, basically they are wrong.
So that's very interesting, and it seems that based on what you said, it's not necessarily that there's been a sudden shift in the behavior of the supreme leader at this time, that generally as part of the Iranian system and the Iranian historical experience, that the supreme leader has accommodated different visions and different policies that presidents have pursued. Is that correct?
Exactly. And in fact, on particularly on foreign policy and national security issues, the Supreme National Security Council of Iran are the main body which basically make the decisions about these issues, about foreign policy issues, about the security issues, and other issues as well. And within that body, we have basically a diverse group of people, diverse individuals representing different organizations, different cabinet ministries. So they are all there, and they are not all look alike. They are not all from the same views. So they will discuss, they will debate, they will deliberate on the decisions, and once the decisions are being made, though legally, theoretically, the supreme leader has the authority to veto the decisions, but almost always he's going to support the decisions which have been basically the consensus of that body.
So on this discussion of particular decisions, let's talk about the current nuclear negotiations that are happening. Why do you think, or why has Iran now come to agree to such an interim agreement, or it seems to have changed its position from the past? Is that the case? Is it not the case?
In fact, I would like to address the question in a slightly different way.
Sure.
And I would add why Iran and US agreed basically with the joint plan of action. To me, the important factors are as below. Number one, war. Though the chances of war are extremely low in the Iranian perception, but still even 1% chance is a lot. To me, Iranians were convinced why they have to subject, they were convinced that's not the right way to subject the country even into a potential war, even though the chances of such a war are extremely low. Even that extreme low still is important.
So 1% is still too high.
Still too high for a country.
Okay.
So they were convinced that they have to remove the chances of war. From the US side, I guess the Obama administration concluded that war cannot force Iran to change its behavior regarding the enrichment program. Because first of all, it was costly. Second, they were not certain that what would be the consequences of attack. That may in fact very much force Iranians to weaponize their program. Just last week, James Clapper, director of national intelligence, basically said Iranians have the capability to build a bomb, but they don't want to make it because of the political reasons. So if they are willing politically to make a bomb, they can make it a bomb. Thus, any military attack on Iran may in fact convince Iran that they have to weaponize the program. That's exactly what the US doesn't want. Thus, both of them are looking at the war. One would say that, okay, even low is an extreme possibility. The other one has concluded that the war is not the answer to the problem. Number two is the sanctions. To me, Iranians have concluded that the sanctions are important and they are suffering from the sanctions. But the sanctions are an important factor, but by no means that was the one which forced Iran basically to negotiation. Rather, it is like a persuading Iran. It is better to go for the resolution of the nuclear problem. And that's in fact, to give an anecdote, 6 weeks ago, Sunday Times correspondent was in Tehran and we were having a dinner, and she asked me, can you take me somewhere in Tehran which shows me that the sanctions are impacting the Iranians? I told her, if you expect me to take you to a store which are empty, no stuffs are there, or if the people are jumping at the top of one another to get commodities, so such a place doesn't exist in Tehran. So the stores are full of stuff, but by that I don't mean, or I'm not implying that the people are not suffering. Yes, they are suffering. If you go to their home, they will tell you that, okay, they are suffering. So I can say that the Iranians are not desperate. So the sanctions has not made the Iranians to be desperate, but they are suffering. From the US side, if you look at the President Obama's Secretary Kerry's argument with the Congress, with particularly the Senate, you see that they are making the case that by no means, no matter how crippling the sanctions are, sanctions cannot force Iranian to capitulation. In other words, they are not going to forego about their enrichment program. Thus, they have concluded that they have to make a deal. So, to me, both of them have concluded that diplomacy is the way forward, is the way to resolve the issue and address the issue. But one important factor has helped both sides, and that's what I call an accident. And that accident is the election of President Rouhani. No one thought that he's going to be elected. No one, even close observer of Iran, imagined that that's a possibility just a few months before the election. But that happened. That happened, and that paved the way for diplomacy to work. How? Because President Rouhani has promised to the Iranian nation in his campaign that if the centrifuges are running, so their life should run too. if the centrifuges are spinning, the life should spin too. Thus, he had the mandate, and we know that he won in a landslide election, and he had the mandate to tackle the issue. And to me, the Supreme Leader also found it into his interest, to go for a deal. Why? Because now the team which is handling the nuclear issue is Javad Zarif, highly respected diplomat inside Iran and outside Iran. President Rouhani, highly skillful politician. So everyone, basically, if anything goes wrong with the deal, people are not going to blame only the Supreme Leader for that. Rather, the blame is going to be shared by Zarif, Rouhani, and the Supreme Leader. But if the deal would have been done under President Ahmadinejad, few people would have basically blamed Jalili because he was a very junior and negotiator, and many of the blame would have gone to the Supreme Leader. Thus, the conditions from the Iranian side was ready for a deal. From the US side, that was extremely difficult for President Obama and Secretary Kerry to argue for a deal with the former president of Iran, Ahmadinejad, and former negotiator Jalili. So it was extremely difficult to make a deal. And if they wanted to make a deal, they would have asked much more, and they wanted much more concession from Iran to make the deal possible. But it is far easier, politically more convenient to make a deal with Zarif and with Rouhani. So that's why I said that this accident paved the way for a deal and facilitated the interim agreement. So that's why, of course, there are regional issues which there's no time for me to address it. Regional issues are for sure are important, but these were main elements that why we had the deal.
Well, wonderful. Thank you so much for having this discussion with us here today. And we look forward to seeing how this accident that you described really turns out in the future of negotiations between Iran and the U.S. and the P5+1.
Thanks a lot that you gave me such an opportunity, and I'm delighted that I was here for the interview.